Academy, New Delhi. We are fortunate to have with us Dr. K.N. Shiba as the resource person. Dr. K.N. Shiba completed her BTech in Chemical Engineering from Madras University, MTech in Energy Engineering from Bharathidasan University, and PhD in Energy Engineering from National Institute of Technology, Trichy. She has nearly 18 years of working experience, which include both teaching and research. Currently, she is working as Associate Professor in the Department of Chemical Engineering, National Institute of Technology, Trichy. During her service, she also served as Warden and Associate Dean for Hostels, President for NIT Trichy Ladies Club, and TEQIP Nodal Officer. Dr. Shiba has executed many funded and consultancy projects funded by various agencies including Department of Science and Technology, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, etc. She has published several research articles in peer-reviewed international journals, national and international conferences. She is serving as guest editor, editorial board member, and a reviewer for many international peer-reviewed journals. Her area of interest includes alternative fuels, renewable energy, and industrial safety. On behalf of the Department of Mechanical Engineering, I extend our heartiest welcome to you, madam. I remain, you may proceed with the session.
Thank you, Arjun. Thank you for the introduction. May I know the composition of the participants, the group? The background of participants, Arjun?
Ma'am, the participants are from various departments, mechanical, electrical, electronics, even some chemistry and physics faculty members are there.
Fine,
I
fine.
hope only 2 persons from chemical engineering from your background.
Okay, so my job is going to be tougher. Okay. Okay, fine. Fine. I just wanted to know it so that I can streamline my presentation. Thank you. I'll just share the screen now. Wait. Are you able to see my screen?
Ma'am.
Yes. Is it in full screen mode now?
Yes, ma'am, it is in full screen mode.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. Hope you had enjoyable and fruitful sessions in the last 3 days, I suppose. See, I'll be touching upon the prospects and the processes related to solar photocatalysis for energy and environmental applications. I'll quote one example from energy and environmental applications for solar photocatalysis, even though the applications remains very large. Deepan, can I switch off my video? I'm just having
Yes,
trouble
ma'am.
with the
Yeah.
network.
Yeah, you can, ma'am.
So how do I do that? Let me see. One second, I'm just new to this Google. We used to do in Microsoft Teams and other thing. One second. So, yes. So, I'm present now. Going to the screen. Okay, so this is the topic of presentation today, and I'll make sure that these questions are answered in this presentation. Like, what is a photocatalysis? Why it requires the utmost importance nowadays, and how it is done. Okay? And in between this, I'll be sharing the examples, or I'll be sharing the studies in which this kind of catalysts have been used in chemical industries. So before going on to the photocatalyst side, we need to know what is a catalysis and what are catalysts. So everyone will be knowing this. Catalysis, catalyst is a substance that can catalyze, or in other words, which can speed up the reaction. Okay, these are the points that I've given here. Are various definitions that are being given in literature. Okay, anything that can catalyze or anything that can speed up the reaction is called as a catalyst. And during its process of catalysis, or during its process of speeding up the reaction, it does not get consumed in the reaction. It just get itself involved in the reaction, and finally you can regenerate it out of the reaction. So that is why it is said that it is not getting consumed in the reaction. So if it is getting consumed in the reaction, what is it called as? It is called as a reactant. Okay. If it is getting consumed, it is called as a reactant. It doesn't get consumed, but it just alters the rate of the reaction, or speed up the reaction, or the rate of reaction. So that's why it is called as a catalyst. Okay. And catalysis is a part of our life cycle also, because there are so many reactions that is happening within the human body, that is happening within the world around us, which are catalyzed by small enzymes, which are catalyzed by sunlight, etc. Okay, so catalysis is a part of the natural life cycle of our system. Okay. And you may wonder, with respect to chemical industry, there is a huge demand for such kind of materials. There's a huge demand for catalyst. Too much of amount is spent on the catalyst for example, your petrochemical industries, your fertilizer industries, your pesticide industries. Okay, all industries, the demand of catalyst is around 90% of the processes. 90% of the processes are catalytic. So just think about the quantum of amount that is spent on this kind of catalytic materials. So catalysis is not, what I'm trying to say is that catalysis is not new to us. Okay, so it is there in our life cycle, it is there in our human body, it is there in the industry. Okay, it is all around us, and majority of the processes, more than 90% of the processes are catalytic in nature. So it is not a new topic to us. Okay. So I told you, like, it catalyzes. It catalyzes means it takes part in the reaction. I told you it doesn't get consumed in the reaction, but it takes part in the reaction. So unless otherwise it takes part in the reaction, it cannot alter the rate of the reaction. Okay. When it comes to the topic of altering the rate of reaction, you need to be very, 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 very careful. Okay. There are desirable reactions, there are undesirable reactions. Always A plus B will not give AB. Even though AB is your required desirable product, A plus B may not give AB always. A plus B can give C plus D. C plus D can again react and then give AB plus some other product also. Okay, so there are desirable and undesirable products. So when it alters the rate of the reaction, you have to make sure that the catalyst that you select for the process should alter or should speed up the desirable reaction, keeping the undesirable reaction to a minimum. Okay, there are many processes in which you can see that the catalyst selected have supported the undesirable reaction, leading to an apparent decrease in the yield of the desirable product. So choosing a catalyst is of utmost importance when it comes to a catalytic process. Okay? And again, catalysis, again I told you, so it takes parts in the reaction, it alters the rate of the reaction, finally it is regenerated. So when it comes to regeneration, you have to be more careful when selecting the catalyst. Okay, so how many cycles it can perform, how many cycles of activity it can perform, what is the activity. Okay, what is the activity means? Increasing the rate of reaction is our activity, like that is what is expected out of a catalyst. Okay, increasing the rate of the reaction is possible. What is the lifespan of the catalyst after using many cycles of the catalyst? Okay, What is the choice of catalyst? Choice of catalyst refers to there are many catalysts: metal, non-metal, solid, liquid, polymeric combinations. Everything is available. So how are you going to select the catalyst based on your regeneration? And finally, it should be an economical choice also. So this diagram is known to majority of the people. That is shown in the right hand side is the energy in the y-axis and reaction progress in the x-axis. Okay, so this xy is the reactant. It is reacting to the product z. You can see two curves here. One is the black one and another is the red one. The black curve represents the reaction without a catalyst, whereas the red one indicates the reaction from X and Y to product Z with a catalyst. Okay, so ultimately the difference is those who have done chemical engineering or those who have done chemistry also must know that the difference in energy level between this X, Y, and Z is called as the del G, the change in Gibbs free energy. Okay, so in this case, the Gibbs free energy of the product is lesser, whereas the reactant is higher here. Okay, there are many processes in which the Gibbs free energy of the product is higher and Gibbs free energy of the reactant is lesser also. Okay, so in this example, it is product is at a lower side. Okay, and the difference between this level, the reactant level, and the maxima of the peak is called as the activation energy. Okay, the difference between the reactant level and the maxima of the curve is called as the activation energy. Okay, so activation energy is the difference in energy between the reactant and the maxima of the curve. Okay, so what is happening in a catalytic reaction? So when you are using a catalyst, ultimately you are reducing the activation energy. Ultimately, the reaction has less activation energy because of the use of catalyst. Okay, so if you can see that, so that is the advantage of using a catalytic reaction. And in the catalytic reaction, you can see that there are many peaks here. There are red peaks around here. This denotes your intermediates. Small peaks are the intermediate compounds. You can easily find out that is the advantage with the catalytic reaction. You can separate this intermediate compounds out. If it is a desirable one, you can separate this intermediate compounds out. Okay, it can be isolated also, and it can be identified spectroscopically. What is the compound in the reaction? Okay. So we have seen what is a catalyst, what is a how does it function, how does it alters the speed of the reaction using the activation energy concept. Now we move on to the different types of catalysts. The catalyst has been classified based on the physical state as other gas, catalyst can be solid, catalyst can be liquid also. Based on the substitutes of origin, based on the precursor compounds from which the catalyst is made, it can be classified as an organic catalyst as well as an inorganic catalyst. Okay. Based on the composition of the mixture of the reactants products as well as the catalyst, it can be called as a homogeneous and heterogeneous. Homogeneous means all the components are in the same state. Heterogeneous, they are in different state. Maybe one is your reactant can be a gas, your catalyst can be a solid. So in this case, they are in two different states. So that is why they are called as heterogeneous catalyst. Okay. Based on the action of catalyst, it is called as an enzymatic catalysis, electrocatalysis, and photocatalysis. I'm not going into detail of your enzymatic and electrocatalysis because enzymatic catalysis is mostly found in the life cycle of human systems. Okay, which is catalyzed by the enzymes. Okay, so that is called as an enzymatic catalyst. Electrocatalysis, it uses the energy of the electric energy. That is why it is called as an electrocatalysis. Photocatalysis, as the name itself indicates, it uses the it works with the help of the light source. Okay, it works with the help of light source. So I have highlighted this photocatalysis because it is the topic of today's presentation. Okay. Now, having said this, what is expected out of a catalyst? You say, see, anyway, you are spending amount on the synthesis of a catalyst to speed up the reaction. Okay. Then what you should expect out of this catalyst? Okay. First remarkable characteristic of a catalyst is the activity. Activity, as I mentioned before, activity of a catalyst. The major function of a catalyst. Okay, the major function I expected out of a catalyst is that it should promote the rate of reaction. It should promote the rate of it, because unless otherwise it promotes the rate of reaction, why should I employ a catalyst in a process which is normally happening? Okay. Catalyst will not make a not possible reaction to a possible reaction. Remember that. Catalyst cannot make a not possible reaction to a possible reaction. It can only accelerate the rate of reaction. So that is the duty of the catalyst. So that is expected out of a catalyst. Okay. Then the next major thing is selectivity. And this also I mentioned that your catalyst, selective catalyst should promote the desired reaction than an undesirable reaction. Okay. If it promotes an undesirable reaction, catalyst is of no need to my process. Okay. So I have given a table below with the activity, selectivity, and remarks. If the activity is high, right, it promotes the rate of reaction. Okay, it speeds up the rate of reaction. But selectivity is low. Selectivity towards my desired reaction, selectivity towards my desired product is low, then that is not desirable. On the other hand, if the selectivity is high, but the activity is low, I am able to get maximum product, but the activity is low. It doesn't promote the rate of reaction in a better way. That is also not much desirable. Okay, even though it is better desirable than the first case, it is not much desirable. So the catalyst that you select should have both high activity and high selectivity. Okay. And the third point that you expect out of a catalyst is its stability. Stability is how sturdiness it has, how long it can withstand. Withstand from what? Thermal deterioration. Okay, when usually see normal industrial processes are not carried out at ambient temperature. You may use the process in your laboratory scale as an ambient temperature, ambient pressure process. But when it goes to industry, it is employed in a situation where it has to encounter higher temperature, higher pressure conditions. So high temperature should not degrade the catalyst. Aging. See, when you are storing the catalyst in industries, in the laboratory scale, in our laboratory, what we will do, we will prepare only milligrams of the catalyst and keep it safe and use it for our experimental conditions within 1 or 2 months and then discard it. But in an industry, bulk manufacturing of catalyst should be done. They cannot synthesize the catalyst for a one-day use, right? Because it will not be economical. Okay? Synthesizing catalyst every day for everyday use will not be economical. So they need to prepare in bulk. They need to store it for a longer time. So when it's getting stored for a longer time, how does your catalyst respond to mechanical shock? Okay, this is again when it is being employed in an consider the case of an mixing chamber, an agitated reactor using paddles. Okay, so when the slurry containing the catalyst is being agitated, it is exposed to the mechanical shock. Can it withstand that shock or will it break down? Okay, that is a mechanical shock. Impurities deactivation. Okay, the reactants may see, for example, your petroleum refinery is the crude will have a lead component. Okay, the lead can deactivate the catalyst. Similarly, many of the reactant streams will have undesirable components that can deactivate the catalyst. Okay, so impurities deactivation should not be there. It should be used for maximum number of cycles. Should be used for maximum number of cycles because that is only economical from the industrial point of view. The reason why this photocatalysts have not been picked up in most of the industries is only because of these reasons. Okay, it is easily, it is unstable most of the times, and when you keep on using, for more number of cycles, its activity comes down. Activity means the desired activity of speeding up the reaction that comes down. Okay? Now the next criteria is the surface area. Okay, surface area you might be knowing, so it should be more, because when the surface area is more, the active sites are more. When the active sites are more, the reaction is possible, more possible. So this is what is called as a photo. So we are stopping that catalysis there. We are coming to the photocatalysis portion of your topic. Okay. So for as I mentioned, it is basically a catalysis process. Catalysis that is aided by the use of the light energy is called as photocatalysis. The light energy can be anything. It can be a UV light, it can be a laser light, it can be natural sunlight. Okay, any light, any reaction that involves the absorption of light by one or more reacting species that can participate in the by adding substances that can participate in the reaction without being consumed is called as a photocatalysis. Okay. So you see here, given in the picture here, it is extracted from the website only, from the research laboratory in US. Okay. So see the topmost picture is called as the natural photosynthesis. What is happening in natural photosynthesis? Carbon dioxide and water is being taken up by the plants. Sunlight is being used effectively. This is called as photosynthesis. Sunlight is being used, thereby producing sugars and oxygen. Thereby producing sugars and oxygen for the growth of the plant. Okay. So here comes the artificial photosynthesis. This is what is called as a photocatalysis. Okay. So water using sunlight is split up into hydrogen and oxygen. See, both the cases sunlight is used, both the cases reactants are there, both the cases there are products. So this is artificial photosynthesis. Above one is called as a natural photosynthesis. So your natural photosynthesis is actually mimics, or your artificial photosynthesis mimics the natural photosynthesis as photocatalysis. Okay, so here comes the mechanism. So we say that catalyst that takes up light energy and it converts the reaction and promotes the desirable reaction. So how does it do? Okay, usually in a catalyst process we use semiconductors. Semiconductors are being used for the reason that their band gap is better compared to the metals and insulators. Okay, so there is a valence band here and there is a conduction band here. Upon the incidence of light energy, when light energy strikes the material, the holes will move and the electrons will move down. Okay, so this excitation, valence band, the holes will be excited. Okay, and this movement of electron hole pairs happens. Okay, and on the surface of the conduction band, the reduction process happens, and the surface of the valence band, the oxidation process happens. Care should be taken that recombination of electron holes should not take place. When recombination takes place, then your electrons and holes are not available for the reduction process as well as the oxidation process. Okay, that is the major disadvantage with the kind of photocatalyst that we are encountering. That is why many doping methodologies, semiconductors have been doped with many materials to avoid the recombination. When recombination happens, oxidation reduction cannot happen. Okay. So in this process, we define two terminologies called as the primary quantum yield as well as the overall quantum yield. Your primary quantum yield refers to the number of primary products with the per each photon observed. Each photon refers to your light energy. What does light energy has? Light energy has a photon of energy h nu, Planck's constant. Okay. So per photon absorbed, what are the number of primary products? Primary products need not be your final product. Remember, primary products need not be your final product. They can be intermediate. Okay. So that is called as primary quantum yield. Whereas the overall quantum yield is the number of reactant molecules react per photon absorbed. Okay, from this reaction, I given an example. Hi. Okay. Hi reacts with a photon of energy h nu, giving H plus I. Okay. This H again reacts with one more molecule of Hi, giving H2 and I. Okay. So that the final reaction is 2Hi, 2Hi molecules reacted and given the final compound. Okay. So here the primary quantum yield is 2 because these are H and I intermediate compounds formed per photon of energy absorbed. Whereas the overall quantum yield F is 2 because 2 Hi molecules reacted. These are the number of reactions happening in the system. Number of reactions happening in the system. And your quantum yield basically depends upon the wavelength of light that you are using for the process. Okay, if you are using different wavelength of lights, we can get different after it can alter the reaction using different wavelength. You can alter the wavelength of the reaction using different light sources. When you use different light sources, you will have different wavelengths. When you have different wavelengths, your quantum yield will be different. But anyway, your quantum yield cannot be more than your thermodynamic limitations. Please keep that in mind. Any reaction, the quantum yield is going to be the maximum that is predicted by the thermodynamics of that reaction. So this is okay. So this is why we are using semiconductors for this photocatalysis. You can see metal, there is no band gap. So here also you can see there is no band gap between the valence band and the conduction band. There is no band gap. Whereas in the insulators you have a wide band gap. This is insulators, wide band gap, and semiconductors. You can see it is a considerable band gap. Suppose this is the reaction, water splitting reaction. H2O is to be split into hydrogen and oxygen. So this is the, you can see this levels, lowest level and the highest level. You can see this difference. If you see this difference, can we use metals? See, the difference is this much length, this much in height. Metals doesn't have that band gap, so the metals cannot be used. If you take insulators, see this band gap is too much for a splitting of water to hydrogen and oxygen. So insulators cannot also be used. Whereas if you consider the semiconductor, you can see the band gap. Band gap is nothing but the difference between the valence band and the conduction band. This band gap and this gap are considerably closer. So you can use semiconductors for the photocatalysis. Okay. So above some pictures have been given for the application of photocatalysis. So when you are using photocatalysis, you should make sure that the recombination effects are to be avoided. You can see this is a catalyst particle. This here represents the catalyst particle. I am taking an extract out of this catalyst particle and expanding it here. Okay, so this is your valence band and this is your conduction band. Okay, so when photon of energy h nu is being absorbed, electron holes are generated. Okay, so see here it can holes are traveling in this direction. Okay, and oxidizing the metal, oxidizing the species that that we want, or we need to have a reduction oxidation reaction. We can employ it accordingly. Whereas the electrons are traveling to another space in the reduction reaction. So A is being reduced to A minus. Okay, these are the desirable paths. You can see this is a desirable path as well. This is a desirable path. The path leading to D plus as well as the path leading to A plus. Whereas you can see two additional paths are here. You can see from the surface they are traveling and recombining. See minus and plus, they are recombining here. This is called as surface recombination. Electron hole recombination on the surface of the catalyst is called as the surface recombination. Whereas when electron holes travels to the bulk of the catalyst and then combines there, it is called as a volume recombination. both are undesirable because surface recombination, volume recombination will combine the electrons and holes, so we will not get sufficient electrons and sufficient electrons for the reduction reaction, sufficient holes for the oxidation reaction. This is again depicted here for water splitting reaction. Okay, so electron and hole photon is observed, electron holes are generated, it travels down for reducing H2O to H2O to O2. So solar photocatalysis simply the addition of light source as your solar energy. Okay, the solar photocatalysis means that in the place of the like any light source, I told you UV light can be mainly UV light and visible light are used. Whereas if you are employing the solar light, solar spectrum for photocatalysis, it is called as a solar photocatalysis. Okay, there are two processes with the use of solar energy. See, solar energy can increase the temperature using thermochemical processes. Solar energy with the light of photons H nu can modify the bonds and produce your photocatalysis process. So these are the two major applications of your solar photocatalysis. Okay, so what kind of modification are you going to do with the photo? I told you, right? See, semiconductors are best suitable for photocatalyst, but the major defect with this photocatalyst is that there is a band gap required for the process is not usually met by the semiconductor. Suppose if you need around 2.7 electron volts for the process, the band gap of the semiconductor materials usually will be in the range of 3, 2.83, etc. So that will not be suitable for your photocatalysis processes. One more thing is that when a semiconductor, when electron holes are generated, it will recombine and form additional effect rather than your desired effect. Okay, so that is why the semiconductors have been modified using many methods. Now, some of the methods are given here. I'm not going into the details of this because it is a well-established concept. Okay? So first is called as a dye sensitization, in which an organic molecule is added to a semiconductor catalyst, which can alter the band gap of catalyst. Surface modification can be done to improve the stability of the catalyst. You can couple two semiconductors so that you get multi-layer systems. Multi-layer systems means multi-level band gap systems. You can also dope by nitrogen, carbon, sulfur, etc. to give additional levels of band gap, and you can sensitize using doping also, doping with metals, non-metals, etc. Okay, so I told you like doping can be done. See, when you add a metal doping, what is happening? Okay, so upon induction of light, what will happen? Electrons are generated in the conduction band and the holes are generated in the valence band. See, this electron hole pair is called as the excitons. Okay, excitons. Okay, so what happens when you dope a metal? When you dope, so this is the metal that you are doping with. This is your semiconductor. A normal semiconductor which we use normally, it is the majority of the processes use titanium dioxide, TiO2, as the semiconductor for many of the processes. Okay, suppose this is your TiO2 and I am adding a metal to it. Okay, so in the semiconductor, upon irradiation by the light energy, holes will be traveling, electrons will be traveling, and when you dope a metal, what will happen? This metallic substance will attract the electrons from the conduction band. When it attracts electrons, what will happen? This electron hole pair recombination is being avoided, which is one of the major issue in the semiconductor materials. And mostly we use nanoparticles as the photocatalyst for many processes than bulk particles because of the following advantages. Because if you have nanoparticles, they are in the much lesser size than your bulk particles, so you'll have higher surface area, you'll have more active sites of catalyst, and you can get a better activity. And with the nanoparticles, the tuning is possible. What is tuning? Tuning is the process by which you can shape the particles, nanoparticles, into different shapes like wires, plates, spheres, etc., depending upon your requirement. Okay, So higher surface area leads to the presence of more band gap availability. Okay, size of the particle is small, so you can have wide band gap also. The edges of the valence band and conduction band changes when you use the nano particles than your bulk particles. So this is what we mentioned. TiO2 has been used effectively for all the catalytic processes. TiO2 is usually prepared from TiO alkoxide by hydrolysis process. You will get a hydrolyzed form of TiO2. Then you have to calcinate this. Calcination can give you the anatase phase of your TiO2. There are different phases of TiO2. The physics people can understand that anatase and rutile form. So further calcination, further heating will give you rutile form of TiO2. Okay. So when you so this is your calcination temperature. When your calcination temperature is low, the material is in the form of an amorphous state. When you increase the temperature, you will have an anatase phase here, this one. And when you increase the temperature further, it has a rutile phase. Okay, what happens to crystallinity? The crystallinity improves, is high when you start from the lower to higher calcination temperature, whereas your surface area decreases from large to small. So how do you select a photocatalyst material? Okay, because we want a better crystallinity, we want a better surface area for a photocatalyst, so you will have to select in this region. Because you select a rutile one, you will have a better crystallinity, but you will have a small surface area. Whereas if you select an amorphous thing, you will have a better surface area, whereas you will have a low crystallinity, which is undesirable again. So you will mostly select your anatase phase for TiO2 because it has a better crystallinity and better surface area. Okay, so what are the essential requirements for an photocatalysis process? As far as the experiments are concerned, you need to have a light source, you need to have a reactor. Light source for providing the light energy, reactor for providing a system for the combination of your light, reactants, and the catalyst. Okay. Photolysis, I mentioned the photolysis is without the use of catalysis. Without the use of catalysis, photo means your light, lysis is your process. Photolysis means without using catalyst, only with the use of light source and reactor. Okay, here you need only the light source and reactor. Upon the irradiation of light energy, there are some organic pollutants that can be destructed. That is called as photolysis. Whereas photocatalysis, that degradation can be done using a light and as well as a catalyst. So for an experiment, see, we have seen what a catalyst, what are the desirable catalysts, and what modification can be done to a catalyst. Coming to the experimental part of your photocatalysis, you need to have a constant source of radiation. You need to have a constant source of light. Okay, that is one of the major disadvantages with your solar system, solar photocatalysis, because the continuous availability of solar energy, solar light is absent. Okay, the input concentration. If you are doing your wastewater treatment with photocatalysis, the input concentration of your effluent is also a major criteria. Reactor type and the dimensions. Okay, there are many different types of reactors are used. We can use a batch reactor, we can use a continuous reactor, we can use a slurry type of reactor. Okay, we can use a solar concentrated reactor. Many type of reactors are available. Operational parameters: at what temperature, pressure conditions you are operating, what pH levels you are operating. Okay, and a photocatalyst with the desirable characteristics. These are some of the applications that I am mentioning here. Other than that, there are many applications of photocatalysis, but the yield, the quantum yield that matters here is mostly less with the majority of the processes. Whereas your water splitting and hydrogen generation is a well-established concept. Even though its quantum efficiency is much low, it is a well-established because this was the process which had started with the photocatalysis. Okay, with the invention of photocatalysis, hydrogen, water splitting into hydrogen and oxygen have been taken up for experimental study using photocatalysis. So it is well established. Other environmental applications are water treatment. Water treatment involves your wastewater treatment as well as your disinfecting your normal water also. Air treatment, removing pollutant concentrations. CO2 reduction. Okay, CO2 reduction. CO2 reduction is one way of an environmental application as well as an energy application. When you when you reduce CO2, you'll get many fuels. So energy applications also it can be taken up. Then deodorization. Okay, organic materials can be absorbed by this photocatalyst. Thereby, it can deodorize the surfaces of surfaces. Antimicrobial. When you are using silver catalyst, silver photocatalyst, it can function as an antimicrobial agent also. So this is just a picture of when this process started, when this concept of photocatalysis started in the early 1960s. In the early 1960s, we studied the effect of UV radiation on inorganic semiconducting materials. They used TiO2 and zinc oxide with the semiconductor theory. It all started in 1960. Okay. Further, it is expanded in 1972 with the photosensitization effect of TiO2 for the electrolysis of water. This is what I told you. See, from the beginning itself, the splitting of water into hydrogen and oxygen had been experimented for photocatalysis. So, effect of, so again here they have used only the UV light. Okay, effect of UV light on the materials of semiconducting materials. Okay. Next was in 1977. Okay, so photocatalysis of water on doping. See, they have doped with the platinum. Okay, so you can see the previous works. Now there are groundbreaking effects on the utilization of cheaper materials as dopant. Previously, only this platinum, gold, and other materials which are costly have been used as the dopant materials. Okay, so it was in 1977. This platinum doping with the TiO2 powders had been used in a chemical cell. Then the next progress was in the 1985. So all over the process, you can see that 1987. Again, this photocatalysis for purification. 1993, this water treatment, polluted water treatment had been taken up for study in 1993 using your photocatalysis. Okay, or there have been photocatalytic degradation or mineralization of organic pollutants. Again, they have been using only UV light radiation for the photocatalytic processes. Then coming back to your 1998, 2003. Yeah. 1998 was work on development of visible light TiO2. Okay, or UV light because see, when you start approaching your solar spectrum, you cannot only have a UV light a catalyst that can work on only UV light. You should start moving to the visible light spectrum also. So the development of visible light spectrum had started in 1998. Again, see, TiO2 had been the most prominent semiconductor catalyst that had been used. Then photocatalytic, again here water only with the hydrogen and oxygen under sunlight radiation started in 2003 and 2004. Okay, 2003, 2004 started your photo light source as the solar light. It progresses still now. Okay. And here you can see graphitic nitride here in 2016. Okay, because graphitic nitride gained momentum in 2016 since it is actually a metal-free polymeric photocatalyst, which will not cause you any environmental damage, which can be prepared from cheaper sources and which is highly active also. Okay, from there you have carbon nitride aerogels. Okay, you have carbon nitride quantum dots. See, this is what I told you. The advantages of using nano materials is that you can shape it into different structures using different methods. Okay, so this completes your introduction to photocatalysis as well as your solar photocatalysis. Okay, so we'll move on to the one or two experimental. What's the time now? It is 12:21. Okay, fine. I have enough time. Okay, so we'll move on to the case studies. Okay, so this case studies had been performed in our laboratories. This work had been completed by a PhD scholar, and she had been awarded a PhD in 2019. Okay, her work was on the reduction of CO2 using visible light driven carbon based nano composite. Okay, so we have been trying to reduce the CO2. CO2 capture and storage had been gaining momentum since 10 to 15 years back. So rather than concentrating on capture and storage, we were trying to find out whether the CO2 can be trapped and converted into useful fuels. Because if you capture and storage, then what is next? We can storage. How are you going to release that? Okay. So instead of capturing and storage, we wanted to see what best can be done with the use of conversion of CO2 to useful fuels. There only we found that from 2014 to 15 onwards, this graphitic carbon nitride had been gaining momentum because of the inherent advantages that I told you. It is easy to prepare, it is non-toxic, it has better stability compared to other polymeric materials. Okay, and the disadvantages is that this is a disadvantage with almost all the semiconductor materials, because it absorbs very less in the visible light spectrum, as well as it has a higher recombination rate of electrons and holes. Okay, so that is why we went for doping. So the precursors means the raw materials that has been used for the synthesis of graphitic carbon nitride. So this was the objective of the work. We developed a series of photocatalysts using graphitic nitride and its combinations of doped AgBr, silver bromide, silver chloride, and silver iodide. We have taken silver specifically for the purpose that we need to do antimicrobial studies also, because silver is an effective catalyst for antimicrobial studies. You might have seen this. What advertisement was that in which Kajol appears there? They will be mentioning that silver is an antimicrobial agent, right? So silver is a very good antimicrobial agent. So that's why we have selected a doping material like that. But it's in the laboratory scale, it seems to be a better option. But when you scale it up to the industrial scale, the silver dopants are going to be a costly affair. Okay. So synthesized, then characterized, and then found out the efficiency of conversion. Okay, you can see here. So graphitic carbon nitride here, the band gap is around 2.7 electron volts. Okay, so lower the valence band and higher the conduction band is the criteria for selection of a photocatalytic material. Lower the valence band and higher the conduction band. See, for this you have only graphitic carbon nitride and carbon. Is it all right? Everything is all right there? Okay, so the selection of your photocatalytic process is basically the lower valence band and higher conduction band. Among this photocatalyst that has been mentioned for CO2 reduction, you can see that there are two catalysts, copper oxide as well as the graphitic carbon nitride has higher valence, higher conduction band. So these two were the primary categories, and lower valence band. This one has the lower valence band, but there were number of works reported in copper oxide. So that's why we didn't select that material. We selected graphitic carbon nitride. Okay, so first was your we tested the performance efficiency of your graphitic nitride as well as your doped graphitic nitride with the silver bromide. So silver bromide has an excellent absorption in the visible region, whereas your graphitic nitride doesn't have that much absorption in the visible region. So doping AgBr with the graphitic nitride will solve that problem. So these are the materials required, and this is the process by which we synthesize your graphitic carbon nitride. Here, this is this yellow powder, the graphitic carbon nitride as per the standard operating procedure. This is the procedure for synthesis of AgBr with GC3N4. As a GC3N4 is obtained as a sheet-like structure. We have embedded AgBr in it. So then this is your AgBr graphitic carbon nitride. This has been confirmed by various analytical studies also. Okay. See the color differences of graphitic carbon nitride, AgBr, second one, as well as this AgBr doped graphitic carbon nitride. Okay. So we have done enough of the characterization studies for all the composite materials like your UV analysis. UV is absorbance spectra, which can give you around, which can give you the optical absorption and reflections, reflectance. Tox plot, we can calculate the band gap. We have done EDX analysis also to find out the elemental composition of your graphitic nitride as well as your composite. Composite, by composite I mean the doped silver bromide with the graphitic carbon nitride. Okay. We have done XPS analysis also, the electronic state of each material. Okay. Each element present in the sample can be found out using the XPS photoluminescence spectroscopy. Photoluminescence spectroscopy will easily tell you what is the emission properties. Okay, what is the excited charge lifetime and how effective are the separation of your photo excited electrons and holes there. Okay, zeta potential analyzer will give you the surface charge of all the components there. NMR analysis will chemical composition of your CO2 in the medium. Okay, CO2 as such cannot be it's not effectively converted if it is dispersed in any medium like water and amine. So water and amine has better solubility of carbon dioxide. So if it is dispersed in a medium, it can give you better results. So the absorption of your carbon dioxide in these mediums can be found out using your NMR analysis. Other than that, we have done FTIR also, SEM10, HE10 for the morphology and the microstructure analysis. So this is the experimental setup. You can see this is your reactor. It's completely sealed to prevent the other light sources interfering with the reaction, because here we have used a UV lamp here. Okay, we have used a 11 watt CFL lamp here as the light source. So it has been sealed with these sheets to prevent the interference of other light sources into the reactant mixture. So carbon dioxide is supplied from a cylinder. So carbon dioxide is dispersed. You can see the picture here. It's better illustrative. The catalyst particle is suspended in a medium. We have used two mediums, water and amine. Okay. Liquid sampling port is collected here. Gas sampling ports, because CO2 reaction in a medium irradiated by the light source with the light with the catalyst particles can give you both gas and liquid product, even though the quantum of liquid products was found to be very meager. Okay, so we had liquid products also. So we have tested, each time we have tested the sample from the liquid and analyzed for its change in the chemical composition. Gas outlet is taken from here and analyzed using GC. Liquid is in GC-MS also. So these are called as control experiments are those in which you conduct experiments. See here, three main materials are carbon dioxide, catalyst, and a light source. So we made sure that in the absence of any one system, the process didn't give you any product. Okay. So first control was using only carbon dioxide and catalyst without a light source or using a dark condition. Okay. The second control was the using carbon dioxide and light source without a catalyst. Okay. The third control was the light source as well as a catalyst without carbon dioxide. Okay. So no major products were visible. So these were the results of that AgBr composite. You can see that your 1%, where is this 1%? Yeah, 1% composite of AgBr and graphitic nitride had given us the better results when compared to others. Whereas 1.5 also was a little closer to 1%. but we took this as the optimum because making 1.5% AGPL is again an additional economical impact on the industry. So we stopped with the 1% AGPL. You can see the products here: methane, hydrogen, and acetone. Methane was found to be in a higher quantity. Here we never aimed at any selectivity. Mind you, we never aimed at any selectivity. We just performed the experiments as such with the available materials. We never aimed at the selectivity. Okay, we were just bothered about the activity here. TEA is the triethanol amine solution. It was acting as a better medium. See, when water is used for dispersing carbon dioxide, when amine is used for dispersing carbon dioxide, the difference is this much. So this means that amine has a better solubility of carbon dioxide compared to your water. Okay? So this again is the typical results of your photocatalytic process. From the experiments we conducted, we found that the selectivity of our catalyst was for methane. The selectivity of the catalyst was for methane. Okay. Whereas another important product in the reaction is the hydrogen. Lead is acetone because hydrogen is the fuel of the future. Okay. So hydrogen is another major product. Our catalyst was not very suitable for this hydrogen production, but there are many studies which can give you the effect of a different catalyst combinations in the same process, carbon dioxide conversion process, and which can give you higher hydrogen also. So this is a stability test, recycling stability, how many cycles you can use it, photo aging stability, how much time you can use it, okay, continuously how much time you can use it, what is the variation in the efficiency, variation in the product yield when you use number of cycles, variation in the product yield when you use number of times, variation in the product, the third one is the starch stability, like we after using the fresh sample, we stored the sample for around 15 to 20 days, and then again we took the sample and found out the effectiveness of the same catalyst, stored catalyst in the product yield. So that's why I told you this graphitic nitride and AGBR had got a better stability when compared to the other catalyst. We have also used many other catalysts in wastewater treatment, but our stability of the catalyst was way behind this AG catalyst. So quickly I move on to the other composite also. The other composite was the AgCl, silver chloride, graphitic nitride composite. Again, the same kind of methods have been used for the synthesis and the physicochemical characterization. The same, our analysis confirmed that it is a better suited catalyst. So these are the experimental conditions. So here also 1% AgCl had given the same performance as that of 1.5% AgCl. So we took 1% AgCl nanocomposite as the better one. Here also methane was favored. Even CC in the 1 point, when you increase the concentration, hydrogen is becoming a better produced than the methane. But again, we didn't conduct the experiments beyond that, because as I told you, we never aimed at the selectivity. We just wanted to confirm what kind of products that we get from this CO2 conversion using the nanocomposites of AgBr and graphitic nitride. So again, here, as I told you, the amine functions as a better medium when compared to the water medium. So this is again the catalyst dosage and the radiation time and the stability test. These are the stability conditions. Selectivity, again, this catalyst better favors your this reaction, your methane selective reaction. These are the inferences. The third category was the performance of your AGI, silver iodide decorated. See, we use catchy terminologies for the acceptance of papers. So silver iodide, the nano composites with graphite nitride. Silver iodide. Yeah. So this is a synthesis of silver iodide. Again, we have tried the same compositions only 0.5%, 1% as well as your 1.5%. Sessions confirms that your nanocomposites with AgX, I call that as X halogens, right? So with the graphitic nitride are well dispersed. Okay. So this is again your 1% AgI gave me the best results. Activity is again good for a methane. Okay. In addition, you can see that here one more component is present here, which is the ethanol. Just see here, this was an accidental result. Okay, accidental result. Even though its composition was very meager, we never expected that we'll get ethanol. And as I told you, we never aimed at the selectivity of the material. So ethanol was an indication that this kind of catalyst, if when improved, can be used for the production of ethanol also. Then coming to its selectivity, coming to the yield, we are yet to confirm it. So ethanol, see, ethanol is better than your acetone. We are yet to explore the mechanism of this ethanol formation. So this is the stability test again. The photo aging, storage in dark, and the recycling stability. So we have confirmed. This was a liquid medium. Okay, so CO2 was dispersed in a liquid medium such as water in one set of experiments, such as amine in another set of experiments. Then we confirmed. We conducted the experiments. The other set of experiments was on using a non-aqueous, or what you call as the gaseous phase reactor. Okay, in which we never used this. This is a gas phase reactor we have used. Okay, we didn't use any liquid medium to disperse. Okay, we never used a liquid medium to disperse the catalyst. Catalyst is coated here. Okay, and this blue cover is kept on this, over which these light source have been irradiated. So this is the distance again, distance between the light source and the reactor, effect of radiation time, effect of light power. So we have used 3 different lamps of wattage. Okay. So the 11 watt gave us the best one. For all the composites, 11 watt gave the best one. So these are important findings of our workers. The last 3 columns. So this we compared with other works also. The last 3 columns is our worker. Okay. So methane and acetone. You can see the products, nature of products: methane, acetone, ethanol, HCOH, etc. Methane was more in number. Methane was the major product out of the system in your gas phase study also. So all the photocatalytic experiments and the stability experiments conducted in the lab, it showed that they are very highly stable and they can perform better in the CO2 conversion than with the normal semiconductor materials. Okay. And surprisingly, the ethanol yield was observed in the silver iodide system, which is yet to be established there. And the gas phase system gave us a low methane value than your liquid phase reaction. Okay, that was your energy application, CO2 conversion to useful fuel. The last application is your water treatment. Okay, so solar photocatalytic. You see, The previous experiment was not on solar photocatalysis. It used an artificial lamp for as a light source. So next we have done the photocatalytic experiments with the solar using solar energy. We have taken a tannery wastewater and we have treated the water for removal of phenolic or for the reduction. We cannot remove it fully for the reduction of phenolic component in the system. Okay. So the type of semiconductors that we have taken a metal, we have taken a non-metal, we have taken layer double hydrides. Like you have multi-layer of semiconductor materials there doped with your same graphitic nitride. See, we have taken graphitic carbon nitride since 2014 based on its advantages presented in the system. So that's why we have taken graphitic nitride. So with graphitic nitride, we have doped TiO2, which is a very famous semiconductor. Alkali halide is the metal, non-metal, and your layer hydroxide. So these are the objectives, and this is a setup we can see. So, see here we used the first one, what do you say? The CO2 experiments. CO2 experiments was for the batch reactor. CO2 experiments was for the batch reactor, whereas in the solar photocatalytic water treatment, we have gone for a this reactor. We have gone for a continuous reactor. Okay, in which experiments have been conducted from morning to 3 o'clock in the evening, and we have taken the parameters for study. See, it's a staggered reactor with the plates coated with your catalyst, prepared catalyst, your what do you say, your alkali halide doped system, as well as your metal, non-metal doped system, layer double hydroxide doped system, etc. Experiments were performed with we didn't take artificial effluent. See, mind you, see, when you're doing experiments with artificial effluent, you are not mimicking the actual processor. So unless otherwise you take a real effluent, it is going to be a mess for you people. So we have taken a real effluent from Ranipet with a 3 liters of effluent for 8 hours. So these are the operational parameters. Chemical oxidant actually favors your reaction through the use of hydrogen peroxide. Okay. So these were the results of your characteristic. You can see that the band gap is 2.7 for graphitic nitride. When you dope it with the 30%, graphitic nitride is 2.88. So you can see I have given 30%, 40%, etc. See, we have done experiments with various percentage value for each category, but we have given you the optimal value results here. 30% sodium doped graphitic nitride, 40% potassium doped, 70% layered double hydroxide doped graphitic nitride, 40% boron doped. Okay, these are the performance studies. You can see your sodium and potassium doped graphitic nitride give us the better results and compared to all other systems. So these were the phenol degradation studies for number of cycles. You can see, so this is the actual system. Okay, this is the actual system. Number of experimental runs means number of times that you are repeating the experiments. With the 10th experiment itself, mind you, it is not the 100th experiment. With the 10th experiment itself, the degradation had come down drastically. You can see, this is your layer double oxide 30%, 30%. Layer double hydroxide doped with the graphitic nitride, the phenol degradation was only around 45% with only the 10th experimental one. So this is the problem with the real industry system. So we have mimicked an industrial effluent, we have mimicked an industrial setup for our studies. So the catalyst stability was less. Catalyst was more leaching from the surface of the system. Okay, all these are practical difficulties when you encounter it. When doing in a lab scale in a closed reactor setup, wherein you see the CO2 reduction to useful fuels, we have disposed the catalyst in a batch reactor, in a cylinder, in a conical flask, in a system. So that is disposed continuously. That catalyst is not going to leach out. Okay. But whereas in a actual scale system, when you are using a continuous system exposed to sunlight, there is a carryover of catalyst, photocatalyst along with your effluent. So that needs to be prevented. So that is why I have given this slide. With the 10th experimental runs itself, your efficiency started declining. And mind you, this is a real effluent. This is not a artificial effluent. So, so that was the environmental part of your solar photocatalysis. So, what I would like to say that the challenges, there are many challenges. There are many challenges with the commercialization of this type of systems. Okay, use of cheaper materials as photocatalysts. Many photocatalysts that have been developed are really costly. When you go to the industry to treat 1 liter of water or to treat 100 gallons of water per day, they'll be calculating how much catalyst you require, the cost of preparing that catalyst, cost of adding makeup catalyst, because in an industrial treatment, catalyst may be leaching out in the process. You have to add up makeup catalyst to compensate for that leached catalyst. So adding up of additional catalyst materials all consumes cost, right? So use of cheaper materials. You need to try to operate in the full solar spectrum. Your UV, visible as well as the near infrared catalysts need to be found out. Because the catalysts so far we have been discussing have been active in the UV light. Based on some modification dopants, it could be active in the visible light. Now you have to explore catalysts which can work out in the near infrared spectrum of your solar spectrum also, because you have to use the full spectrum of solar energy. Okay. Standardization of experimental conditions and characterizations aimed at higher efficiency. There are no standardization conditions available for each process. I mentioned so many processes, right? Water splitting, wastewater treatment, air purification, deodorization, antimicrobial, fuel production, water splitting, etc. See, there are no standardized conditions for each process. No paper or no literature provides data that for water splitting, this must be the type of reactor used. This must be the type of catalyst used. You will get this much percentage of reduction in efficiency. All these things are not standardized basically. Reactor, we have not touched upon the reactor part in this presentation because that's a vast area. Design of the reactor, how far you are able to catch the light. See, when you are using an artificial lamp source, it is not a problem. You can just fix that onto your reactor setup. Distribution of light may not be that difficult. Whereas when you are using sunlight, distribution of sunlight onto various parts of the reactor for affecting the reaction is a major concern. Okay, and the majority doesn't report based on AQE, AQY refers to apparent quantum efficiency, apparent quantum yield. Quantum yield and quantum efficiency must be taken into account. Quantum yield and quantum efficiency means per photon of h nu absorbed, what is the efficiency? Per photon of h nu absorbed, what is the yield? So that should be calculated rather than your other degradation efficiency. Cost factors for the preparation of photocatalyst, for scaling up of systems, energy constraints, recovery. See, when this catalyst gets accumulated in the slurry, they need to be regenerated, right? So they need to be taken out for next cycle. So regeneration of your catalyst from the system, you will lose some amount of catalyst there itself. So that also has to be studied. Stability, okay, versus the cost of products. Okay, is it worth employing a photocatalyst for getting this much quantum yield against the cost of products that you get out of an industry? So that needs to be worked out. New materials, yes, you need to find out new materials also, because you need to have a robust material. As I mentioned, it has to withstand all the mechanical agitation, it has to withstand the thermal degradation, it has to withstand all other impurities. Okay, so these are the challenges encountered for a better photocatalysis, better efficient photocatalysis. And more than that, any system, your electronic structure or the configuration of the material that you are using. Material means your catalyst that you are using will control the reaction. Okay, if you are trying to modify, we need to modify it, right? We have problems with the photocatalyst. What are the problems? It has lesser absorption in the visible region. It has lesser absorption in the infrared region. Okay, it promotes the combination of electron hole pairs. Then what we have to do? We need to modify it. When you try to modify it by adding dopants or sensitizing, etc., you are trying to destroy the structure of the catalyst. When you destroy the structure of the catalyst, again the activity is affected. Thermodynamic limitation, I already mentioned. Whatever you do, you cannot get a material which can give you a 100% efficient system. Okay. Charge transfer for preventing recompression needs to be, this also I mentioned earlier. Okay, so photocatalysis for using the full spectrum of solar energy is usually aiming at the visible light and the near infrared light of the photocatalyst. NIR is a near infrared light activated photocatalyst. Photocatalyst that can work both in the visible region as well as your this region. What is that? Visible region as well as a near infrared region of solar spectrum needs to be explored. And now what they are focusing is that solar activated catalyst for water purification or synthesis, green synthesis of fuels, CO2 reduction, and photothermal also. So suppose if we can, out of the HNU generated, if we can get some thermal energy which can activate the catalyst, okay, that can also contribute to the quantum yield of the process. That is also being explored out using solar energy. Okay. So I'll stop with this. I can take up questions.
Participants, you can ask the questions now, or you can type it in the chat box. Already there is one question. Can we use differential scanning calorimetry to check the phase change?
Answer. Let me go to the Google Meet. Can we use DSC to check the phase? Yes, you can do that. We didn't do it because it doesn't. What do you say? It doesn't give you my catalyst that I've used. We use it only for an ambient temperature, or we didn't use it for a high temperature applications. Right? Even for photocatalytic degradation of effluent as well as your CO2 reduction, it was a normal ambient temperature process. So we didn't check it. Yes, you can use DSC also. There is a question available.
Any other questions?
Okay, so it is being typed. Okay, whatever we are saying is being typed there in the Google Meet. You can try out the various photocatalysts and its combinations. Basically, when you select a photocatalyst, make sure that it can work within the band gap of your required reaction. So first you need to formulate the reaction. So for example, the water splitting reaction is H2O is being split into hydrogen and oxygen. Right. So for this reaction, what is the energy requirement? Okay. Based on that, you can select catalyst. See, for your for CO2 reduction reaction, I've shown you a slide with the various catalysts that have been employed for CO2 reduction. From that, I had chosen a catalyst which fits into the band gap, also which is less costly and which is less toxic to the nature. Okay, like that you have to select them.
So I think there is no other questions from the participants. We can conclude the session. Ma'am, thank you very much for the wonderful session you had handled here. For the past 3 days, we had seen so many sessions related to mechanical as well as electrical engineering based solar applications. So this is the first session that we had seen about the chemical based solar applications. So definitely, I hope that the participant got some knowledge about the solar photocatalysis and the reactions based on that. So thank you very much for the wonderful session. In your busy schedule, you accepted the things because last so many programs we discussed, but you were very busy and you not gave the appointments. So this time you accepted and you made the presentation very nicely. So on behalf of Department of Mechanical Engineering, Jyoti Engineering College, my heartfelt gratitude to you. We hope that in future we will collaborate for some research work as well as some other programs. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deepan. Thank you for the opportunity given to me. Sorry that I didn't accept your previous offers. It is basically lockdown had made the life a bit hell for the women working group. We needed to handle the house as well as the office work, and particularly handling classes online had become a major issue because we are not used to all these things. Even though we can learn, we are not used to do all these things. So we are in the learning process. So handling everything, work, home, uh, had been difficult. That's why I didn't accept her. But
Understood, ma'am.
I'm
Understood.
very
Even a
glad
small
because
daughter is there in your home.
yeah, I got a 3.5 years kid there. She is attending online LKG class. I have to be with her. So that's why. So very sorry for that. I'm sure that we can collaborate in future also. Are you able to see the slide? I've given my email ID. The
Yes,
slide.
ma'am. Yeah, yeah, it is visible.
So participants, you can note down this, and if you have any doubts and if you want to collaborate also, you can approach me. So this is my email ID, and my mobile number also I'll write. 1 second.
So few participants from chemistry background already you contacted me regarding your PhD related things. So as I
Okay.
said, I am not familiar with the chemistry. You can contact ma'am if you need anything through her email ID.
Fine, fine. So yeah, so that's why I've given my email ID as well as my mobile number. Do not call me. Keep put me, this is my WhatsApp number also. So WhatsApp me for any queries because I mean mostly I'm not attending calls because of the continuous work that we are having. But when I'm getting free time, I just check for messages and reply also. So okay, do send me WhatsApp messages or you can mail me also. When you mail me also, I respond. So thank you for the wonderful opportunity, Deepan. Thank you. All the best. Do well.